It was a quiet Saturday morning at Murphy's Auto Repair, the kind of place where chrome meets grease and stories are told in the language of wrenches and worn leather. The autumn air carried the scent of motor oil and coffee from the shop's old pot that never seemed to empty, mixed with the crisp promise of winter just around the corner. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Thunder Creek riders had gathered for their weekly bike maintenance ritual, brothers bonding over carburetors and memories. Their voices a low rumble of conversation, punctuated by the clink of tools and the occasional burst of laughter. It was their sacred Saturday tradition, a time when the Brotherhood came together not for the open road, but for the quiet intimacy of shared work. Marcus Stone Rivera, the club's president and a man whose weathered face told stories of roads traveled and battles won, was bent over his Harley's engine, his massive hands working with surprising delicacy on the chrome and steel. At 52, Stone carried himself with the kind of quiet authority that didn't need to announce itself. His graying beard was meticulously trimmed, his leather vest adorned with patches that spoke of decades of loyalty, service, and brotherhood. The garage was filled with the comfortable sounds of men at work. Diesel, a former Marine whose gentle giant reputation belied his intimidating size, was teaching young prospect how to properly balance a tire. Hawk, whose sharp eyes missed nothing and whose own childhood scars had taught him to recognize pain in others, was cleaning his bike with the same precision he'd once used to maintain his service weapon. Wolf, the club's enforcer whose reputation for protecting the innocent was legendary throughout 3 counties, sat quietly sharpening a knife, his movements methodical and calming. It was the kind of morning where nothing ever really changed, where time moved slow as honey and every moment felt suspended in amber, until the sound cut through the morning calm like a blade through silk. Footsteps, running, desperate, small feet pounding against concrete, growing louder, more frantic. A small voice, cracking with tears and terror, shattered the peaceful atmosphere. Please, please help me. They hurt my sister. Every wrench stopped mid-turn. Every conversation died, as if someone had flipped a switch. The very air in the garage seemed to hold its breath. Stone slowly straightened, his steel gray eyes finding the source of that broken plea, his heart already beginning to pound with a familiar rage that he'd learned to control but never fully suppress. Standing in the garage doorway, silhouetted against the bright morning sun, was a boy maybe 8 years old. Maybe younger, tears streaming down dirt-stained cheeks. His small fists clenched tight at his sides. His clothes were torn, his sneakers muddy and worn through at the toes, and his eyes held the kind of raw, primal fear that ages a child before their time, the kind of terror that speaks of things no innocent should ever witness. The boy's name was Tommy Chin, though none of the bikers knew that yet. What they could see was a child who had run not away from danger, but toward what he hoped might be salvation. He stood there, trembling like a leaf in a hurricane, but his chin was raised with a courage that defied his obvious terror. He hadn't given up. He'd chosen to fight in the only way an 8-year-old knew how, by seeking help from the most intimidating men he could find. Tommy lived with his 12-year-old sister Sarah and their mother, Maria, in a small apartment on the wrong side of Thunder Creek. Maria worked double shifts at the diner and the grocery store, trying to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. She was a good mother who loved her children fiercely, but poverty and exhaustion had worn her thin. The kids had learned early to take care of each other, to be strong, to make do with little. Stone knelt down slowly, his massive frame folding with practiced ease to meet the child's eye level. The movement was deliberate, non-threatening, the kind of gentle approach that came from years of understanding that sometimes the scariest-looking men needed to be the gentlest souls. Around him, his brothers formed a protective circle without being asked, their massive forms creating a wall of leather and muscle that somehow managed to feel safe rather than intimidating. "Easy there, little man," Stone said, his gravelly voice dropping to a tone so soft it was barely above a whisper. "You're safe now. What's your name?" "Tommy. The boy stammered, his small body still shaking with adrenaline and fear. Tommy Chin, I live. I live on Maple Street with my mama and my sister Sarah, and they took her. His voice cracked completely on the last words, and fresh tears spilled down his cheeks. Stone's jaw tightened imperceptibly. He'd seen that look before in his own mirror, decades ago, when he was just another scared kid with nowhere to turn and no one who cared enough to listen. The memory hit him like a physical blow. Himself at 10 years old, watching helplessly as his father's fists found their mark again and again, learning that sometimes the people who were supposed to protect you were the ones you needed protection from. Diesel moved closer, his enormous frame somehow managing to project comfort rather than threat. At 6'6" and 260 pounds of solid muscle, Diesel looked like he could tear a man in half with his bare hands. But Tommy seemed to sense what the Brotherhood had learned long ago, that gentle giants existed, and sometimes they rode motorcycles and wore leather vests. Tommy, Diesel said, his voice carrying the kind of calm authority that had once commanded Marines in combat zones halfway around the world. We're going to help you and your sister. But first, I need you to tell us exactly what happened. Can you do that for me? Tommy nodded frantically, wiping his nose on his torn sleeve. We were just playing in the yard behind our apartment. Mama was at work. She always works on Saturdays. Sarah was teaching me how to ride her bike, the one Mama got her for her birthday last month. His voice gained strength as he spoke, as if telling the story was giving him back some control over it. Then these men came. 4 of them, maybe 5. Big guys, bigger than anyone except maybe you, he said, looking at Diesel with something that might have been the beginning of trust. They had a truck, a beat-up white one with no license plate that I could see. They said they were taking our bikes. And when Sarah tried to stop them, Tommy's voice broke again. Hawk stepped forward, his weathered face set in grim lines. Hawk had his own history with bullies and predators, his own childhood scars that had never quite healed. What did they do to your sister, son? They grabbed her. She screamed and tried to fight, but they just laughed. One of them, the one with the snake tattoo on his neck, he said. Tommy swallowed hard, trying to find the courage to repeat words that had obviously terrified him. He said they were going to teach her some manners. And then they put her in the truck and drove away. The temperature in the garage seemed to drop 10 degrees. These weren't just thieves looking to make a quick buck off stolen bicycles. They were predators who enjoyed the fear they caused, who took pleasure in the helplessness of children. And they'd made the catastrophic mistake of hurting kids in Thunder Creek, where the Thunder Creek riders had long ago appointed themselves the unofficial guardians of the innocent. Wolf, who had been silent until now, spoke in a voice that carried the weight of absolute certainty. Where did they take her? Tommy. The old warehouse. The big gray one by the river, where they used to make car parts before the factory closed. I followed them on foot until I couldn't keep up anymore. But I saw where they went. Tommy looked around at the circle of leather-clad giants surrounding him, his eyes bright with desperate hope. I ran all the way here because I heard people say you guys help people sometimes. That you're not bad like some people think. Stone felt something twist in his chest, a mixture of pride and heartbreak that this child had run to them in his darkest hour. The Thunder Creek Riders had worked hard over the years to build a reputation in their community, not as outlaws or troublemakers, but as men who stood up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. It seemed their efforts had paid off in the most important way possible. How long ago did they take her? Stone asked, already doing calculations in his head. Maybe an hour? I'm not sure. I don't have a watch. Tommy's voice was getting stronger now, fed by the obvious concern and determination of the men around him. Please, I'll give you anything. I got $3 in a Pokemon card collection, and he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small battered wallet, opening it to reveal a few crumpled bills and some trading cards protected in plastic sleeves. Son, Stone interrupted gently, placing a massive, tattooed hand on the boy's shoulder with infinite care. The gesture was so tender, it would have shocked anyone who knew Stone only by reputation. We don't do this for money. We do this because it's right. Because children should be safe. Because your sister matters, and you matter, and nobody has the right to hurt either of you. Before you continue with this story, if you believe in standing up for those who can't defend themselves, in brotherhood that transcends blood, and in the power of good people to make a difference when the world seems dark and dangerous, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Tell us where you're watching from, because stories like this remind us that heroes come in all forms, sometimes wearing leather and riding steel, carrying hearts bigger than their engines. Stone's phone appeared in his hand as if by magic, his thick fingers moving with surprising speed across the screen. The text message he sent was short, simple, and more powerful than any call to arms in the club's history. Code red. Kids in danger. River warehouse. Come now. All patches. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within seconds, phones throughout Thunder Creek were buzzing with the same urgent message being passed from brother to brother. The Thunder Creek riders had a code that was simple and unbreakable. When one of them called, they all answered. When children were in danger, the whole brotherhood moved like thunder across the earth, swift and unstoppable. Stone looked down at Tommy, his gray eyes soft but determined. I'm going to call your mama. Let her know what's happening and that you're safe with us. What's her number? Tommy rattled off the digits, which Stone immediately dialed. The phone rang 3 times before a tired female voice answered. Hello? Ma'am, this is Marcus Rivera with the Thunder Creek Riders Motorcycle Club. I have your son Tommy here with me, and he's safe. But I need to tell you about your daughter. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Then, a sharp intake of breath. Tommy? Oh God, I told him to stay in the yard. What happened? Where's Sarah? Stone's voice remained calm and steady, but Tommy could hear the steel beneath it. Some men took her. Ma'am, we're going to get her back. I need you to trust us on this. Tommy did the right thing coming to us, and we're going to make sure both your children come home safe. I don't understand. Who are you people? Should I call the police? Ma'am, with respect, by the time the police organize a response, it might be too late. We know where she is, we know who took her, and we're going to handle this. Your son will be safe here with us until it's over. There was a long pause, filled with the sound of a mother's worst nightmare playing out in real time. Finally, Maria's voice came back, thick with tears but strong with determination. Bring my baby home. Yes, ma'am. You have my word. As Stone ended the call, the first rumble of engines could be heard in the distance, growing louder by the second. Within 15 minutes, Murphy's Auto Repair had transformed from a quiet weekend gathering place into something that looked like a scene from an action movie. 23 Harleys filled the parking lot and spilled onto the street, their chrome gleaming in the autumn sun like armor. The brothers arrived in a steady stream, some solo, some in pairs, some with their wives or girlfriends riding behind them. Each one who entered the garage took one look at Tommy's tear-stained face and Stone's grim expression and understood immediately that this wasn't a routine club matter. Reaper, the club's oldest member and a grandfather of 6, arrived on a bike that was older than some of the younger members. At 71, he'd seen more than his share of evil in the world, but his eyes still blazed with righteous fury when he learned what had happened to Sarah. Count me in, Prez, he said simply, checking the .45 caliber pistol concealed beneath his leather jacket. Nobody hurts kids on my watch. Torch, the club's treasurer and a volunteer firefighter, came roaring up on his bright red Harley, still wearing his fire department t-shirt from an early morning call. What do we know about these bastards? He asked without preamble. Snake, ironically nicknamed for his hatred of actual snakes, was the club's intelligence officer, a man who could find information about anyone, anywhere. He was already on his phone, making calls to contacts throughout the city's underworld. White truck. No plates. 4 to 5 men. Leader has a snake tattoo on his neck. Give me 10 minutes, I'll have names and addresses. The brothers continued to arrive. Bull, whose massive frame made even Diesel look small. Phantom, a former Special Forces operator whose stealth skills had made him legendary. Roadblock, whose ability to stop traffic literally and figuratively had saved countless lives over the years. and on until the garage was filled with the concentrated power of 24 men who had chosen brotherhood over blood, loyalty over law, and protection of the innocent over personal safety. Ghost, the club sergeant-at-arms, and a man whose reputation for swift, brutal justice was whispered about in the darkest corners of the city, knelt down beside Tommy. Despite his fearsome reputation, his voice was gentle as he spoke to the frightened boy. "Tommy, I need you to tell me exactly what these men looked like. Every detail you can remember. Can you do that?" Tommy nodded eagerly, seeming to draw strength from the assembled might of the Brotherhood. The one with the snake tattoo, he was tall and skinny, with greasy black hair. He was missing some teeth. The others were bigger, like bodybuilders. One had a shaved head and earrings. Another one had a red bandana and cowboy boots. Ghost nodded grimly. "Sounds like the Viper crew. Small-time dealers and thieves who think they're tougher than they are. They've been operating out of that warehouse for about 6 months, thinking they're untouchable." Stone's expression darkened. "Not anymore, they're not." Snake returned from his phone calls with a grim smile. "Got him. Viper crew, like Ghost said. Leader goes by, Serpent, real name Danny Kowalski. 3-time loser with a sheet longer than my arm. Assault, battery, theft, intimidation. The others are muscle for hire. Ex-cons mostly. Word is they've been grabbing kids for some kind of sick initiation ritual." The silence that followed this revelation was deadly. Every man in that garage had children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, or memories of their own childhood trauma. The idea that these animals were systematically terrorizing children for entertainment crossed every line the Brotherhood held sacred. Diesel cracked his knuckles with sounds like gunshots. "How do we play this, Prez?" Stone looked around at his assembled brothers, these men who had chosen to spend their Saturday morning rescuing a child they'd never met simply because it was the right thing to do. His heart swelled with pride even as his mind focused on the tactical situation ahead. "We do this smart, and we do this clean," he said, his voice carrying the authority of absolute command. "This isn't about revenge, it's about rescue. We get the girl out safe, we make sure these bastards never hurt another child, and we do it without crossing any lines that would bring heat down on the club or this community." Phantom stepped forward, his special forces training evident in his bearing. "What's the layout of that warehouse?" 3 stories, mostly empty except for some old machinery on the ground floor. Roadblock replied. He'd worked construction in the area for years and knew every building in a 20-mile radius. 2 main entrances, plus a loading dock in the back. Windows on all sides, but most are boarded up. If they've got the girl, she's probably on the upper floor where they can see anyone coming. "Perfect," Stone said grimly. "Here's how we do this." 20 minutes later, the Brotherhood was rolling through Thunder Creek like a force of nature. To the casual observer, they might have looked like any other group of bikers out for a Saturday ride. But Tommy, riding behind Stone on the massive Harley with a borrowed helmet protecting his small head, could feel the barely contained violence radiating from every rider. The procession moved with military precision. Phantom and Ghost had gone ahead on foot to scout the warehouse and confirm Sarah's location. Snake and Bull took positions to block the main road in and out of the area. Torch and Reaper covered the back exits. The rest of the Brotherhood formed a wide circle around the warehouse, creating an inescapable net. As they approached the industrial district by the river, Stone pulled over and turned to Tommy. "I need you to stay here with Diesel, okay? This is as close as you get until we have your sister safe." Tommy's eyes filled with tears again, but he nodded bravely. Just please bring her home. She's all I got." "You've got more than that now, son," Stone replied, his voice thick with emotion. "You've got 23 big brothers who aren't going to let anything happen to either of you ever again." Stone's radio crackled. "Phantom here. I've got eyes on the target building. 4 bikes outside. White truck parked by the loading dock. I can see movement on the 2nd floor. Any sign of the girl?" Stone asked. "Negative. But there's definitely activity up there. Looks like they're not expecting company." "Copy that. Ghost, what's your position?" "Rear entrance is clear. 2 guards by the front door, both armed but not alert. These guys think they own this neighborhood. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Stone smiled grimly. Time to teach them different. All units, execute in 60 seconds. The Thunder Creek Riders moved like a machine oiled by years of practice and brotherhood. Despite their fearsome appearance, they operated with the precision of a military unit and the coordination of men who trusted each other with their lives. Phantom and Ghost moved first, their stealth skills allowing them to neutralize the rear guards before the men even knew they were in danger. No shots fired, no violence beyond what was necessary to prevent the guards from raising an alarm. The two sentries found themselves cable-tied and gagged, staring up at men whose eyes promised a much worse fate if they so much as breathed too loudly. The front assault was more direct, but equally effective. Stone, Wolf, and 6 other brothers walked straight up to the main entrance, their boots echoing like thunder on the concrete. The 2 guards at the front door took one look at the approaching wall of leather and muscle and made the mistake of reaching for their weapons. They never got the chance to draw them. Wolf moved with the fluid grace of a predator, his massive fists connecting with jaws and solar plexuses in a combination that was over before it began. The guards dropped like stones, unconscious but breathing, disarmed and neutralized without permanent damage. "Clear," Wolf said simply, stepping over the unconscious forms. Inside the warehouse, Danny Serpent Kowalski was beginning to realize that his morning wasn't going according to plan. The sound of multiple motorcycle engines, company, surrounding his building had penetrated even his drug-addled consciousness, and the sudden silence from his guards was starting to make him nervous. "Check the front," he snarled at one of his remaining men, a hulking brute named Tank who fancied himself a badass until real badasses showed up. Tank never made it to the stairs. The front door exploded inward with a crash that echoed through the empty warehouse like a thunderclap. Stone stepped through the doorway, followed by his brothers, their footsteps creating a rhythm like a funeral march. Behind them, more brothers poured through windows and side entrances, moving with the coordinated precision of men who had done this before. Danny Kowalski, Stone's voice echoed through the warehouse, calm and deadly as winter wind. "You have something that doesn't belong to you." From the second floor came a panicked shout. "Who the hell are you people? This is private property. We're the people your mother should have warned you about." Wolf replied, his voice carrying enough menace to make hardened criminals think twice about their life choices. "And that little girl you took belongs with her family." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Wrong answer," Stone said, beginning to climb the stairs. His brothers flanked him, their movements unhurried but inevitable. The confrontation on the second floor was brief and decisive. Danny Kowalski and his 3 remaining associates found themselves face to face with 23 men who had collectively seen more combat, survived more hardship, and protected more innocent people than most small armies. It wasn't even close to a fair fight. "Where's the girl?" Stone asked, his voice deadly calm. Danny, realizing that bravado wasn't going to save him, pointed toward a locked door at the far end of the room. She's in there. We weren't going to hurt her. You just what?" Ghost asked, stepping forward with his hands clenched into fists that looked like sledgehammers. "Nothing. We weren't going to do nothing to her." Stone nodded to Diesel, who approached the locked door and spoke gently through the wood. "Sarah? Sarah Chin? This is Diesel, with the Thunder Creek Riders. Your brother Tommy sent us to bring you home." A small, frightened voice came from behind the door. "Tommy? Is Tommy okay? They said they were going to hurt him if I didn't cooperate." "Tommy's fine, sweetheart. He's safe with us. I'm going to break this door down now, okay? Don't be scared." Diesel's massive frame made short work of the flimsy lock. The door swung open to reveal a 12-year-old girl huddled in the corner of what had once been an office. Sarah Chin was dirty and frightened, but unharmed, her eyes wide with the kind of terror that would take time and love to heal. "It's okay," Diesel said softly, kneeling down and extending his hand. "We're friends of your brother. We're here to take you home. Sarah looked past Diesel at the assembled Brotherhood, her young mind trying to process the sight of so many intimidating men who had somehow appeared to rescue her. Are you? Are you the good guys? We're trying to be, Stone replied gently, stepping into view. And we're definitely your guys. What happened next in that warehouse became the stuff of legend in Thunder Creek, though the details varied depending on who was telling the story. What everyone agreed on was that Danny Kowalski and his crew learned a very hard lesson about the consequences of hurting children in a town protected by the Thunder Creek Riders. No one was killed. No one was permanently maimed. But four career criminals suddenly found themselves very motivated to leave Thunder Creek and never return. The message was delivered with the kind of clarity that even the dumbest predator could understand. Children were off limits, period. Stone knelt down in front of Danny, his gray eyes boring into the smaller man's soul. You're going to listen very carefully, because I'm only going to say this once. You and your crew are going to pack up your operation and disappear. If any of us ever see you in Thunder Creek again, if we ever hear about you hurting another child anywhere, if you even think about revenge, well, let's just say this conversation will seem like a pleasant memory. Danny nodded frantically. His earlier bravado completely evaporated. And just so we're clear, Wolf added, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty, we have friends in every town between here and the Mexican border. Word travels fast in our world. You hurt kids, we'll know about it. Snake stepped forward with a cell phone in his hand. Say cheese, Danny. The camera flash lit up the room as he took several photographs of each criminal. Just for our records. You know, in case we need to help other communities identify known child predators. The criminals were escorted out of the warehouse and given exactly 10 minutes to collect their belongings and leave town. Their truck was allowed to start. Their motorcycles were returned to them intact, and they were given clear directions to the county line. They were also given absolute certainty that if they were still in Thunder Creek in an hour, the next conversation would be much less civilized. Meanwhile, Tommy had been waiting with Diesel's wife, Martha, a grandmother whose gentle demeanor and plate of fresh cookies had done wonders for the boy's emotional state. When he saw the procession of motorcycles returning, with his sister Sarah riding safely behind Stone, Tommy's tears were tears of pure joy. The reunion between brother and sister was everything the Brotherhood had hoped for and more. Sarah threw herself into Tommy's arms with such force that both children nearly toppled over, their laughter and tears mixing together in a sound that was better than any music the hardened bikers had ever heard. I was so scared, Sarah whispered to her brother. But you were so brave, you saved me. We saved you, Tommy corrected, looking around at the circle of leather-clad protectors who had made this moment possible. Maria Chin arrived shortly after, having closed the diner early and driven across town in record time. The sight of her children safe and sound in the protective circle of the Thunder Creek Riders was almost too much for her to process. I don't know how to thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion as she held both her children close. You don't need to thank us, Stone replied simply. This is what neighbors do for each other. But I can't pay you anything. We don't have much. Ma'am, Reaper interrupted gently, his weathered face kind beneath his gray beard. We didn't do this for money. We did it because it was right, because children should be safe, because family matters. Stone knelt down to Tommy's level one more time. You did good today, son. You were brave when it mattered most. You saved your sister by coming to us. Tommy looked around at all the faces watching him with pride and affection. These fierce men who had dropped everything to help a stranger's children. Are you really going to be our big brothers now? If you'll have us. Stone replied with a smile that transformed his entire face. Sarah, still shaking slightly from her ordeal, stepped forward shyly. Thank you for saving me. Tommy said you were the good guys, and he was right. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, handmade friendship bracelet, the kind that 12-year-old girls make in art class. I made this for my mom, but would you like to have it? So you don't forget us? Stone accepted the bracelet with hands that trembled slightly, his eyes bright with unshed tears. I'll treasure it always, he said softly, tying it around his massive wrist, where it looked absurdly small and absolutely perfect. In the days that followed, word spread through Thunder Creek about what the Thunder Creek Riders had done for the Chin family. The story grew in the telling, as stories do, but the core remained the same. When children were in danger and no one else could help, the Brotherhood had answered the call. The warehouse district became a much safer place almost overnight. Other predators and criminals who had been operating in the shadows suddenly found new towns to terrorize, unwilling to risk a confrontation with men who had demonstrated such decisive action on behalf of innocents. The Chen family's life changed as well, but in ways that money couldn't buy. Tommy and Sarah found themselves with 23 surrogate uncles who took their well-being personally. Reaper taught Tommy how to throw a proper punch and, more importantly, when not to use it. Diesel helped Sarah with her math homework every Tuesday at the diner. Snake set up a college fund for both children, quietly funded by contributions from every member of the club. Maria Chin discovered that she had more than just neighbors in Thunder Creek, she had family. When her car broke down, it was fixed overnight in Murphy's garage, no charge. When she couldn't afford winter coats for the children, packages appeared on her doorstep, wrapped in brown paper with no return address. When the landlord tried to raise her rent unfairly, a quiet conversation with some leather-clad visitors convinced him that the current amount was perfectly reasonable. The transformation wasn't one-sided. Each member of the Thunder Creek Riders found himself changed by the experience of saving Sarah and protecting Tommy. They had been reminded of why they had formed their brotherhood in the first place, not for the bikes or the leather or the reputation, but for the deep human need to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Stone began volunteering at the local elementary school, teaching children about motorcycle safety and stranger danger. His imposing presence became a source of comfort rather than fear. As word spread that this was one of the good guys, Wolf started a self-defense program for women and children, teaching them not just how to fight back against predators, but how to recognize dangerous situations and seek help. His classes became so popular that he had to expand to 3 nights a week. Diesel and his wife Martha became foster parents, opening their home to children who needed temporary safety while permanent solutions were found. Their house became known throughout the county as a place where broken children could begin to heal. The ripple effects of that Saturday morning rescue extended far beyond the Chin family and the Thunder Creek Riders. The entire community of Thunder Creek began to change, as if the Brotherhood's actions had given everyone permission to be better neighbors, braver citizens, and more protective of the vulnerable. Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman who lived across from the Chins, started a neighborhood watch program that actually watched out for neighbors rather than just their property. The local diner began offering free meals to any child who came in hungry, no questions asked. The police department, initially skeptical of vigilante justice, found themselves working more closely with the Thunder Creek Riders on community safety initiatives. Local businesses began displaying small decals in their windows, a simple design of a motorcycle wheel with a child's handprint in the center, indicating that they were safe havens for children in trouble. The symbol became so widespread that children throughout the county learned to look for it when they needed help. The annual Thunder Creek Community Festival, previously a small affair, grew into a major regional event largely because of the Thunder Creek Riders' involvement. Their charity motorcycle rides raised thousands of dollars for local schools, children's services, and family support programs. Other motorcycle clubs throughout the region took notice of what was happening in Thunder Creek. The Brotherhood's reputation for protecting the innocent rather than intimidating them spread far and wide, inspiring similar transformations in communities hundreds of miles away. 6 months after that terrifying Saturday morning, Tommy and Sarah Chin stood on the stage at Thunder Creek Elementary School, addressing an assembly about courage, family, and the importance of asking for help when you need it. Both children had grown in confidence and strength, their trauma healing through the love and support of their extended Brotherhood family. When bad things happen, Tommy told his classmates, his voice clear and strong, "It's okay to be scared, but you don't have to be scared alone. There are always good people who will help you if you just ask." Sarah, now 13 and wise beyond her years, added, "And sometimes the good people might look scary at first. But if you look in their eyes, you can see their hearts. And some of the biggest, scariest looking people have the biggest, kindest hearts of all." In the audience, 23 leather-clad bikers wiped tears from their eyes without shame, their massive frames shaking with pride for the children they had come to love as their own. Stone still wore Sarah's friendship bracelet on his wrist, now faded and frayed but treasured beyond measure. It had become a symbol within the club, a reminder that their true strength came not from their bikes or their reputation, but from their willingness to stand between innocence and evil, to be the shield that protected those who couldn't protect themselves. Tommy still had $3 and a Pokemon card collection, but he also had something infinitely more valuable: the absolute certainty that he was never alone, that he was part of a family that would move heaven and earth to keep him and his sister safe. And in Thunder Creek, when children played in their yards and walked to school and rode their bicycles through the neighborhood, they did so under the watchful protection of men who had learned that the greatest brotherhood was forged not in bars or on the open road, but in moments when you had to choose between looking away and stepping up. They had chosen to step up, and that choice had transformed not just their own lives, but the lives of everyone they touched. Years later, when Sarah Ching graduated from college with a degree in social work and Tommy followed her example by becoming a teacher, they both spoke at the annual Thunder Creek Community Festival about the Saturday morning that changed their lives. The Thunder Creek riders still gathered every Saturday at Murphy's Auto Repair for their maintenance ritual. But now the garage was filled with more than just the sounds of tools and engines. It echoed with the laughter of children's sons and daughters, nephews and nieces, foster kids and neighborhood children who knew they could always find safety and kindness in that sacred space. Stone, now in his 60s but still riding strong, had become something of a legend in law enforcement circles throughout the region. Police departments regularly consulted with the Thunder Creek riders on community outreach programs, and Stone had been invited to speak at conferences about building bridges between motorcycle clubs and the communities they served. The warehouse by the river had been demolished and replaced with a community center that bore a small plaque, in memory of all the children who needed help, and in honor of those who answered the call. Danny Kowalski and his crew never returned to Thunder Creek. Word had indeed traveled fast in the motorcycle world, and they found themselves unwelcome in towns they'd never even visited. Eventually, they faded into obscurity, their names forgotten, except as cautionary tales whispered among those who might be tempted to prey on the innocent. But the story of the crying boy who ran to bikers for help, and what the Brotherhood did next, lived on. It was told around campfires and in diner booths, passed down from older riders to younger ones. A reminder that true strength wasn't measured in horsepower or intimidation, but in the willingness to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. And sometimes, late on Saturday afternoons when the sun slanted low through the windows of Murphy's Auto Repair, you could still see Stone pause in his work to touch the faded friendship bracelet on his wrist, remembering the day when a frightened child's desperate plea had reminded an entire brotherhood what they were truly meant to be: heroes, protectors, family. The thunder of their engines was matched only by the thunder of their hearts, beating in rhythm with a simple truth: love is stronger than fear, brotherhood is stronger than blood, and sometimes the most important ride you'll ever take is the one that brings a child safely home. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that there's still goodness, courage, and hope in this world, please like, comment, and share this video. Tell us what you felt, tell us what you believe, and most of all, never forget that even small acts of kindness can save someone's world. And before we end, take a moment to write in the comments: I still believe in kindness. Because that simple belief is what keeps humanity alive, what transforms strangers into family, and what gives ordinary people the power to become extraordinary heroes. Sometimes, heroes don't wear capes. They wear leather and ride on steel horses, carrying hearts stronger than the engines beneath them. And sometimes, When children cry out for help, those heroes answer the call with thunder that shakes the very foundations of evil. This is what brotherhood truly means. This is what it looks like when good people refuse to look away. And this is why the Thunder Creek Riders will always be remembered not for the fear they could inspire, but for the love they chose to share. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.